After writing 2 transformational books myself and supporting many other beings to do the same, I've become enthralled by the deep and mysterious magic that's activated when we choose to say yes to ourselves and commit to the book writing journey. Of course, we want to inspire change and new perspectives in our readers, but the transformation that happens as an author, both throughout the writing process and by actually releasing your book into the world, is surprisingly potent. I know I've been blindsided in the most disruptive and delicious ways by some of the changes my books have brought into my life. Writing a book is like casting a spell. Although we can never be completely sure what's going to be unleashed during the process, we choose to do it anyway. This Unbound one is a heroic journey. Each book has the potential to be a magical portal, a doorway to a new world, both for you and your reader. Each book has a very specific medicine that it's here to share with us. And each book gives us the opportunity to alchemize the magnificent imperfection of our experience into gold. The truth is that anyone can write a book. We could all get a few thousand words down and put them together. But what fascinates me is what happens when we allow the book writing process to go deeper. When we say, fuck it, get naked and dive way down beneath the surface. Letting go of the shoulds and any need to be acceptable, sensible, or approved of. What fascinates me is what happens when we make ourselves fully available to being transformed by the very act of writing a book. This is Unbound Writing, and this is the process we'll be exploring together here in the Unbound Writers Club. I'm Nicola, author and founder of the Unbound Press, and I help magical beings to write the transformational book they're really here to write at this time. I'm your guide here in the Unbound Writers Club, and the aim of this podcast is to help you to feel supported, encouraged, activated as you embark on your book writing journey. Whether you're a first-time author or have many books out in the world, my hope is that you will find something here to inspire you. Let's dive in. Hello and welcome to the Unbound Writers Club. Today we have one of our special Unbound Book Club episodes, and I am joined by Victoria Smisek, author of Falling Awake, a heroine's journey, which has been featured in the book club over the past lunar month. So Falling Awake came out last year in 2021, and it's a memoir. It's Victoria's memoir about how we continue to recreate early experiences throughout our lives until we can wake up enough to realize and set ourselves free. So Vicky says this is a book for anyone who may be feeling stuck and who's looking for some inspiration, or has ever wondered, is it just me? Kind of exclamation mark at the end of that. I think we've all had that feeling. This is such a great read. I've been so excited for it to be featured in the Unbound Book Club. Whenever Vicky and I have a conversation, I always get so much out of it. Just sparks off a lot for me. And in this conversation, she talks about some of the feedback she's received from other people who have read Falling Awake so far. So I'm really excited for you to either meet Vicky for the first time or to reconnect with her because she's been in the Unbound Writers Club before. So let's dive in. So Vicky, welcome back to the Unbound Writers Club.
Thank you. Thank you for having me back.
Always a pleasure to talk with you. And I always begin these conversations with the same question. I know I've asked you it before, and it's something different, like every time in every moment. So I'm wondering what it means to you to be an unbound writer right now.
Well, fortunately, I can't remember how I answered that question the first time round, which I'm glad of. Otherwise, I'd probably have just, rehashed that and, repeated it, which wouldn't be. And I noticed you said like now, right now. So what does it mean to be right now? Right now, I guess it's about actually, I'm kind of in a process of not writing And I guess the unbound part of that means being okay with that rather than having this sort of pressure of, well, I kind of said that I'm writing another book, and so I need to get on with that. And I've been sort of trying, and I've been doing it here and there, but it just doesn't feel like it's the right time right now. So I think a big part of that unbound process is just, so it's not only about being really fluid and kind of flexible with what I write, but also when I write and when I don't write, and recognizing, when the energy is there and when it's not, and not having a sort of set of rules or guidelines about how it should be. I guess that's it. It's so it's the opposite of that. To be an unbound writer means to have no kind of set of guidelines, imposed by anyone else. But, well, this is what you should do. If you want to be a writer, you've got to do it like this, and you've got to kind of, be at your desk every morning and certain number of words. And so right now it's about being really, really trusting in the process that, and it's really interesting you inviting me to do this call, because I'm sort of, I think part of my not really feeling the energy for writing my second book right now is that, hang on a minute, have I even really celebrated and connected and just kind of maxed out enough on my first book? It's like, hang on a minute. So I feel like there's this whole revisiting, and you and I having this conversation now is an opportunity for me to revisit actually that process and that book and that manifestation into the world, which a year and a bit on, nearly a year and a half later, it's kind of easy to forget that it ever happened.
Yeah, exactly.
So this is a really lovely reminder. I'm thinking, actually, maybe I just need to still be with this one first.
Yeah.
Before I move on, put all my attentions and energies into the next one.
Yeah, I love that. Again, I feel that's part of the kind of conditioning that we can hold, that, okay, like we create something, we put it out, and then it's on to the next thing, on to the next thing. We've got to be in a continual state of like production.
Yeah. And that linear process of, okay, what's next, and, achievement and striving and, more. And what's wrong with just hanging out in what we've already done, and kind of coming at it from different angles and exploring it in different ways, and and just kind of being in relation with it. And I really feel like I haven't fully done that yet. So this is a really nice opportunity for me to revisit. And it's really interesting because last night I ran a writing circle. I run writing circles for women it used to be on a weekly basis, on a kind of pop-up basis now online. Anyone's interested, little plug. And the theme that we wrote into last night was revisiting. And I hadn't even sort of, I didn't have this call in mind, when I was thinking about that. So it feels like that's really pertinent right now, that whole theme of revisiting things for all the right reasons. For all the wrong reasons, like we might have a tendency to do, just stuck in old patterns. So, not that kind of revisiting.
No. Well, that's kind of the whole point of falling awake, isn't it? Kind of.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
very much. Nice segue.
Yeah. But I just, before we dive into that, I want to thank you for naming that, kind of, because I don't think you're alone in that kind of, we put our books out there and then we can forget about them, and, and we're off focusing on other things. So,
and it's especially because, and I know I'm not alone in this as well, it's the sort of the nature of unbound writers is to, often write very, very self-disclosing material. But I think especially that as well, there is still that part of me that's like, oh God, have I really said all that? And really, have I really put all that out there? And who's going to read it? And, I still have these edges around it, which then sort of makes it quite easy for me to collude with this idea. Oh, let's just kind of forget about that now and let's move on. So Yeah, I think that's a shame. It just feels quite sad actually when I think about that now.
Yeah. And again, like you say, you're definitely not alone in that either. And,
No.
that's what I love about the book club, actually, because we always have a conversation like on the podcast, like around the time like your book comes out. And that's wonderful. Of course, we want to celebrate like our book
Mm,
when they're making their way into the world. And also, like, we say these books have a lifetime and we get to be in
yeah.
relation with our books like way beyond their
Yeah.
release date. They
Yeah.
and it's something that I'm really passionate about at the Unbound Press. It's an ongoing relationship. It's not like, okay, the book's out
Mm.
there and, we're on to the
Exactly.
next
It's really
one.
lovely that you do this revisiting. It's like when you're watching this documentary series or something, and it's like, 1 year on, and what's
Yeah.
happening. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a nice follow up process.
Yeah. It was
Yeah.
savoring the process,
Mm,
savoring the
mm.
book. And of course, I'm sure you have a different relationship to Falling Awake to the one you had when it first made its way into the world last year. So
Yeah, yeah, I guess I do. I don't think I know exactly how to kind of name that right now about how my relationship with it has changed. Feels like it's completely ongoing, actually.
mm. Well, tell us a bit about the book for those who, maybe have been reading it this month in the book club, like to get
Yeah.
your kind of perspective on what the book
Mm,
is and like who it's for. But
mm,
also for those listening to this who are like, oh, this sounds like something I'd like to read.
mm.
How would you describe Falling Away?
Yeah. How would I describe it? Well, actually, what I want to just say is what's popped into my mind as you've asked me that question is that just a couple of days ago, actually, I had a message from somebody who's just started reading it. And she sent me a message saying, "Oh my God, I could have written this book."
Wow.
Just absolute snap. And that is, I guess that's why I wrote it, or it's not why I wrote it, it's why I put it out there. I think, we've talked about this before. There's a whole difference between, the writing process and then the actual sort of publishing and release, birthing it into the world process. The writing process was a very personal one, just for my own kind of process of healing and revisiting my whole life, actually, as it turned out. Well, certainly from the age of, I think I start writing from the age of 7, which wasn't my intention, actually, when I was thinking about the book and I kind of had the idea. It was going to be much more my recent history, with process that I'd been through around, children leaving home, selling my house kind of over the next year, kind of, letting go of most of my possessions and going back to traveling and sort of really kind of God, there was a buzzer went off every time I said the word revisiting in this conversation. Must be in triple figures by now. So my process of revisiting kind of, the old me, the younger me, the me that existed before I had kids and before certain, life events kind of happened. And I feel like I went a bit off course, which of course we never do go
Mhm.
off course. It's all, I'm sure, exactly as it's meant to be. But yeah, it was kind of a process of finding my way back to myself. And it's kind of like, actually, who do I want to be now at this stage of my life? And breaking away from all the programming, all the conditioning of this is what you do, and then you do this, and then you do that, and then you do that, which has never felt inherently right to me at all. And I feel like I sort of I got sucked into all that, as I think it's quite easy to do when you have kids and then they end up in the school system and you end up, with a mortgage in that system and, so really kind of breaking away from all that. But I felt like as I started to write it, I felt like I really needed to give context. I realized it wasn't, if I just wrote about that, then there wasn't really the background to understand it, for me to understand it
Mm.
first and foremost, and to really sort of see the bigger picture of, well, how did this kind of come about in the first place? So I think, that's really largely influenced by my work as a psychotherapist, which, working with clients, it's all about kind of, okay, well, what are you bringing? What are you, what is it that's kind of going on for you? But what is the bigger picture? And always it's about getting that context, getting that wider context. And, that means going right back, kind of, back to the start. So I really, this memoir then started to unfold as kind of, telling my story, because that's, all I can do.
Mhm.
Telling my story through this perspective of, the events that we go through in life, particularly in early childhood, how they shape us and how they then instill these patterns into us, these, which then become habitual and just automatic. And then we find ourselves, in these kind of repeating patterns, repeating relationships. And so, and then this process of hence falling awake, actually being able to suddenly start, oh, hang on a minute, there's kind of starting to lift the veil, lift the veil of illusion. That, hang on, okay, yeah, I see what's been happening,
Mhm.
and it doesn't have to be like this, So there's the whole, them breaking free from that. So the title of the book, Falling Awake, that's that part of it, really coming into a kind of a greater awareness. And then the heroine's journey is like, oh, well, yeah, well, now the fun begins. It's like that whole, this comes up, with clients all the time, like, actually, ignorance, it's bliss. And,
Mhm.
when we're not aware of these things, that's, even though it's not, of course, a place that serves us, but, coming out of that can be well, is generally rather challenging. And, yeah, but, that's the way, that's the only way forward. And then going on this heroine's journey, because there's this whole thing about, the hero's journey is a really kind of well-known concept. And so I just wanted to bring the feminine into that, because that feels really pertinent right now. And of course it really fits with everything that you do, Nicola, and everything that Unbound stands for. And I think, there is, there's this energy around, women stepping into their power and rising up. And part of that is really telling their story, and going on their own journey.
Yeah.
So,
That's
yeah, so that's kind of, yeah, that's a short synopsis of the book.
I love it. I mean, who do you see as you're saying that? Actually, I'm feeling like this book can be for anyone who is going through this process of either like,
Mm,
beginning to kind of fall awake or, further on in the process. And like having this book can be like so almost like a comfort that I'm not the only one. I think you use
yeah, that's
that phrase
definitely,
on the back page, like anyone who's ever wondered,
yeah,
is it just me? And it's
yeah,
like, I think we've all had that
yeah,
moment. It's like, what is going
yeah.
on?
Yeah. And that is, I think that's primarily, it's a massive part of the healing process for all of us, is knowing that we're not alone, that we might all have a different story,
Mm,
different content of that story, but invariably the process, is the same, that we're all, we're all damaged in some way, you know, on a spectrum of that. We're all a kind of a product of our upbringing and the conditioning that we're born into, either through our individual families or through the culture and society that we live in. So yeah, it's for, I mean, I guess primarily it's going to be women of a certain age who are going to identify with my story, but
mm,
not exclusively, and not exclusively women. I've had,
mm.
quite a few guys that have read the book, and I've had really positive feedback from them as well. So I think it's just universal. And the whole point of this, I don't know if you're familiar with Nicola, or whether any of the listeners are familiar with a film called Finding Joe, which you can watch on Netflix, on YouTube. Sorry, I'd really recommend it. Yeah, so it's called Finding Joe, and it's about Joseph Campbell, who kind of coined the phrase, the hero's journey. And it's about how it's like synonymous in every film, every Hollywood movie, every film, every story. There's the hero goes out into the world on their kind of quest, to find their own sort of internal holy grail, and they slaying dragons and demons along the way, which of course are our own inner dragons and demons of all that conditioning, that gets in our way. And so the journey through that until we kind of, we come back full circle, changed in some way. And, and the hero then returns home with the treasure, which is the learning. And then that's to be shared. So again, that's the whole kind of motivation for then sharing my story, was to kind of offer that, to other people who will identify and do identify.
Yeah.
Because that's healing. It's all about healing. I mean, I think that's just it right now, right? That's what's going on in the world. We're all completely, we all need healing. The world needs healing. The earth needs healing, and that has to start with us.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's why I'm interested in books and writing. It's like, I love them. They're amazing, but it's the healing process we get to experience as we're writing them, and as the readers connect with them. That's, for me, that's what it's all about. So
absolutely, that's the heart of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so that we can all kind of go on then to be better versions of ourselves individually, and then there's a collective process to that, and then before you know it, change the world.
Exactly.
Like you say, changing the world one book at a time.
And that's it. It's not just a marketing phrase. It's like, that's the truth. Exactly.
Yeah. Totally feel that.
As you were speaking there, Vicky, I was wondering, was there ever a time when you thought about not releasing the book, like not sharing it, just thinking, actually, this is a process I've had for myself, and that's enough?
No, if I'm honest, no. I think, I mean, I certainly recognize that process of the fear around sharing it. And I think I sort of compromised with myself. I said, well, I'll just share it a little bit. I think that's where I kind of ended up with it. Like, I'm not, and it's not me anyway. I don't do any social media. I'm really not into that whole kind of vibe, I guess. It just doesn't really feel in alignment with me. So I always knew that I wasn't going to be doing this big kind of marketing kind of PR thing on it and really selling it. But I always felt like, no, it needs to be shared. And it didn't really even feel like that was up to me. I kind of felt like I had a duty to share it. But I think the way that I made myself feel better about that, reduce the fear around that, was by saying, well, just going to share it in a very low key way, and trust, really trust that it will find its way into the hands of those who are meant to read it, and it will stay out of the hands of those who are not meant to read it.
Completely.
And I think by really promoting it, I feel like I sort of, and then I kind of maybe lose control of that and sort of run the risk then of it kind of not just staying in alignment with that intention for it. But I thought about, if I did think about not, the idea now that it's just sitting under my bed as a manuscript, that feels really really disappointing, actually. Like I would have sort of just gone into the catalogue of everything else that I started and didn't finish in my life. And it's such a massive achievement, regardless of whether anybody reads it or gets anything out of it. Like, oh my God, I actually saw that through, which is incredible. That's still, I still kind of surprise myself when I remember that now. It's like, God, I wrote a book.
I know.
And it's out there, and there it is.
I'm holding it in my hands,
Nicola holding it. And people can buy it.
And people are.
And it exists.
Exactly.
People are buying it. People have read it.
And
I've had some amazing. I mean, just every time I get some, feedback about the book, it just, brings me to tears.
Yeah.
So it's just such a special process.
Mm,
And I'm
absolutely.
so grateful for that.
Well, I'm grateful to you for writing
Yeah.
that and choosing to put it
Yeah.
out there.
Yeah. And I think that's what I mean as well. I'm grateful to myself for being able to
Yeah,
see that through and to have the courage to go through with it. And then I'm
completely.
grateful that you were there to receive it and just be a perfect match, as I've sort of written a little bit about now, the midwife to kind of, to birth is just, the doula,
Mm,
not the wife, it's just that it's just a perfect match. And I always knew that, any kind of traditional publishing route just wouldn't be a match
no, I
for me
mean,
or my story or energetically or, just all of that
no, no,
patriarchal
exactly. It feels
shit.
like, your story had to be told like by you in the way that,
Yeah,
and like this is the same for everyone. Like we
yeah.
have people messing the way we tell
Absolutely.
our
And the
story.
whole process through that, the editing and the designing and everything that I went through, with you and your team, I never at all felt like I was ever being asked to compromise, my integrity and my voice and have to change in any way to fit into a certain way. But at the same time, I was given, because that might make it sound like, well, you just, yeah, whatever,
Just put it
we'll
out
just
there.
publish it. And I don't mean that at all. There was the perfect balance of me, still keeping my my sovereignty with it, and also being given what I experienced as being, top quality editing and designing and everything that came with it, just felt like it was really professional. So,
Thank you.
that was lovely.
And I'm
Mm.
glad you experienced it in that way.
Mm.
And yeah, I mean, as we come to the end of this conversation, which has just flown by as
Mm.
ever, as it always does,
Yes, yes.
if someone's listening to this and they're feeling like, oh, yeah, I fancy reading, falling awake, what would you say to them? What's your message to somebody who's coming to this book?
Oh, read it, obviously.
Don't
Like,
read it. Don't.
you mean you haven't read it already? What's wrong with you? Yeah, I mean, yeah, read it.
Just read it,
Just
basically.
read it.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it's like with anything, isn't it? We kind of, it's the same with me. I sort of hear about a book or I see something and I think, oh, that's kind of sparked a little interest in me. And sometimes it's, well, and then the process begins, right?
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
I think there's something in it for everybody to identify with and to hopefully heal with, because that was certainly my experience of reading stories of other women who have been on on a healing process. When I read that, that's what helped me to heal, and then that's what inspired me to tell my stories. It all comes back to healing.
Yeah.
um or just, and I mean, I think as well to say it's quite funny as well, right? I don't want to make it sound
Exactly.
like it's just a bit of
It's
a kind of a,
it's not dry. I'm just saying
it's
that.
not dry. It's funny. I've been told it's quite hilarious in places. So I think it's a good balance of kind of humor and actually kind of not, it sounds all very serious and very heavy, which it is, but I think I've been able to tell that in a way that feels really balanced, with lightness and humor and it's kind of interest. I think,
Mhm.
it's an interesting ride.
It's a juicy read. That's what I
It's
would
a
call it.
juicy read. Thank you.
Put that on the front
Yes,
cover.
juicy read. Like that.
Oh, Vicky, thank you so much
That's okay.
for
Is this?
joining me
Can
today.
I just say something else
Please
before we end
do.
as well? Because as a result of this book, I have birthed a retreat. So what
Yes.
has come out of this?
Yes.
When you said to me when this podcast is going out, maybe like next week or something.
Yeah.
So there are a couple of places left on my retreat at the moment, as of today, recording this.
Mm.
So the Heroine's Journey retreat is going to be in Portugal, in Monchique in Portugal, between the 23rd and the 30th of September. There are a couple of places left, and I've just been doing some work on it this morning. It's going to be amazing.
Wow.
So if you've read the book, or you like the sound of the book, and you want to experience, the kind of, some of the processes that I've been through in retreat form, and explore your own heroine's journey, like answering the call to go on the retreat and to be able to have a really deep dive into a lot of the practices and everything that I talk about in the book. So, love to hear from anybody if they're interested.
How can people connect with you, Vicky?
So through my website, my email. So victoriasmisek.com. So will you put that in
We will. Yeah, we'll put
in the
it
notes, so I don't have to sit here and spell it out. Because it's an unusual surname. Or my email, which you can access through my website, but my email is hello@victoriasmisek.com.
Amazing.
So that's the best way, and actually the only way.
Yeah, exactly. That keeps it nice and simple. So
it does, right? Yeah,
exactly. Oh, well, thank you so much, Vicky. Thank you for being here today, having this conversation. Like I said, thank you for writing Falling Awake. Such a gorgeous read. Really grateful for you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Bye.